All right, guys, welcome to Motorvate. This is season 1, episode 1, and I came up with this podcast for season 1 at least, to celebrate women in motorsports in really badass positions, in women that had a lot of guts, a lot of courage, that can share stories to motivate other women that might want to come through the sport. And so when I was trying to come up with a theme for today's show for episode 1, I'm like, okay, I already know I want Alba Colón. I need to have Alba. And then number 2, what do I call it? How do I bring Alba in for this episode? And I came up with Driven to Dominate. Because, girl, you have dominated in motorsports. And let's just kick it off right there. Alba is an engineer. You have a new position now. It's Director of Competition Systems at Hendrick Motorsports. You've been with Chevrolet for years before that in the sport as an engineer. And I'm laughing. You can help me engineer the show because this is the first, like I said, this is the first episode, and I'm wide open right now. But I wanted to kind of take you back to when I first saw you in the garage, because first impressions mean a lot. And I came in 1998 with CBS Radio Group. And I remember, I'm like, there's not a lot of women in the sport. I mean, I had worked in hockey before and radio and music industry. And all of a sudden, I see you standing in the garage. And I thought, oh, I wonder what she does. And when I started dating my husband, Mike Skinner, in 1999, I said, what does she do? He goes, oh, that's Alba. Like, she, respect. And so my first impression was, okay, how in the world did this woman get in with all these men as an engineer in NASCAR?
First of all, it's great to see you.
Thank you.
And episode 1, that's scary.
I know. So, you can blame it on me. Trust me.
No, but you know what? I celebrate what you're doing. I celebrate. And there's so many amazing women in the sport. And it's great to have a platform where we can talk and share stories and so on. I remember when I met Mike, that was in 1995 in the truck series.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, it was in 1995. And, when I came to the sport, it was a little bit different, right?
Mm-hmm.
Not only there were not too many women, as you notice, but there were also not too many engineers.
Correct.
And not too many Hispanics neither. So suddenly I get here from Puerto Rico and I start to see like, oh, wow, everything is different. Everybody's different. Everybody didn't know how to treat me or what to do with me, right? But hard work, I would say hard work, got me to where I am today. It's about, I don't believe that I deserve respect just to deserve respect. You have to earn the respect. You have to work very hard. Everybody that succeeds in the garage works very, very hard. Doesn't matter how you look like, where you come from. Everybody has to, to work very hard to get to where they want to be. And I will tell you, it was earlier this month, I realized it was my 30th anniversary in the sport.
Gosh. 30 years. Wow.
Yeah, and I feel like I started yesterday. Because I pretty much, seriously, I feel like I started at 5 years old, okay? No, but I just didn't realize that until I look in my calendar and I said, oh, wow. I remember.
Because you're having fun.
Yes, because I am having fun. But I will tell you, the sport has been amazing to me. It has been fantastic to see the sport growing, the drivers growing, how everything is different, but it's still with the traditions that make the sport great. And one of the things that I'm very passionate about is that we need to bring more people to the sport, and we need to bring diverse people, and that can mean many, many things. But just to see how many more women are in the sport, and to see drivers like Hispanic drivers, also Black drivers, and to see how much they have attracted so many people, it's awesome. And there's still a lot of work that we have to do.
I love the fact that this was like a couple weeks ago. I was in the truck garage. Mm-hmm. So Mike is coaching Lawless Allen in the truck series. And so we've been out of the garage for like 4 or 5 years. We've been up in the mountains having fun, doing some vintage racing, going over to the Goodwood Festival of Speed, learning about other disciplines of racing, which has been fantastic for me to observe. But I looked around and I went, wow, this garage is more diverse now. You're starting to see it. I really saw it in the truck garage, and it made me smile. I saw women, I saw Hispanics, I saw African American crew members, and now we've got drivers in the sport. We still need to get a female driver to win in the Truxler Cup or Xfinity, but we're doing. I feel like there is change, and that's why I wanted to talk to you so bad because. Girl, you had guts. I remember I was a little intimidated when I first came in. Well, you know what? I'm going to take that back. I'm a very confident person, as you are. And so I've always surrounded myself with people that are very confident. And I think how you hold yourself, how you hold your shoulders, how if smiling at people sometimes just makes them feel more at ease. And so I've always been really good at that. And when I was working in the radio space with CBS, I got some respect because they wanted to be on the FM dial. That was a big deal back then to get the NASCAR radio off of AM and on FM. This is before Sirius XM satellite radio, folks.
Absolutely.
So yeah, you said 30 years. I'm going on 25. So I'm 5 years behind you. And I remember I felt like people welcomed me, but when I wanted to change roles, because I then became a driver's wife after I married Mike, and I wanted to be in management, driver management, I'm not joking when I tell you this. I had Mike's manager tell me that I should sit in the bus and look pretty and just come out on race day. I didn't need to be in the garage. I didn't need to be working. And I thought, you just talked to the wrong girlfriend because you might have said that to some others, but that's not where I'm going. So take me back to how you even got into motorsports, because I think you wanted to be an astronaut, right? Absolutely. Sally Ride. And when I saw that, I got giddy because I was all into space. I was a space nerd in 6th grade and 7th grade. I loved it.
No, absolutely. And by the way, it's very sad that somebody said that. Somebody said that to you. And,
I pushed back on it.
And by the way, I have been, before I answer your question, but I have been several years ago and somebody told me, you must be the PR girl. Without even asking me a question, it's just like they have this thought that if you look like some way, that you must be this.
Mm-hmm.
And those are the biases that we need to work very hard on it. Long story short, I grew up in Puerto Rico, very proud of my country and my lovely island. And my parents were very, very key about education, was very key on what we do. And I developed that love for STEM from my dad. And I remember reading about math, science, space, all of that. And at 10 years old, I decided that I wanted to be the first female Puerto Rican astronaut.
I love it. I love it.
And I wanted to imitate Sally Ride. That was my idol. And I decided to become a mechanical engineer and do this. And I was very focused about that. But long story short, when I got to the University of Puerto Rico, Mayagüez, I fell in love with a car project that is called Formula SAE, supported by SAE International. And by the way, it's a project that now is all around the world, and many universities support this project. And you get an opportunity to design and to build a race car, pretty much, but it's more an educational experience, more than anything else. But that's where we hire many of the engineers and many of the teams. And you can see any of the top Formula One, IndyCar teams, and many of them came from the Formula SAE experience.
Really?
Yes, many of them. And long story short, I did that for 4 years. And one day there were a couple of gentlemen engineers from General Motors that were looking to hire new engineers at General Motors. And I was one of those that got hired. And suddenly NASA, I don't know what happened.
Yeah, it's like, here we go. We're going racing.
Yeah, we're going racing. But I remember one thing that not too many people know. I remember when I told my parents, okay, I'm moving to United States to do this. And my mother was like, oh, no, what are you doing by yourself? What are you going to do? And I told my mother, don't worry about it. I will be back in 1 year. Because at that time, as a minimum, you needed to be 1 year. And I said, I will do that, and I will not marry an American boy, okay? I promised that to my parents. Well, I think that I married an American boy. And of course, I stayed here. But my father is so proud, and my mother, too. Only that my mother, she worries. She worries, like, you're traveling too much, or you're getting out of work too late. And And I love that. It still doesn't matter. You're still the baby girl, right? But I decided that I wanted to do this, and it was completely different. And like I told you, going to the racetrack those first times and notice that everybody's looking at you like, "Who are you? What are
Hmm.
you doing here?"
Well, you
Um,
stood out. I mean,
yes.
you caught my eye. I was like, okay, I like her. She she seems confident. She's got a kind smile, and I want to know what she does in the garage.
No, and absolutely, but it was hard at first. It was hard at first, but I will tell you, um, the 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 NASCAR community, they were fantastic. They welcomed me. Also, NASCAR leadership. I remember meeting, some of the guys, Mr. Bill France Jr. and so on. Mike
Mike
always, yeah,
Helton.
yes,
Oh,
Mike Hilton, that is fantastic. And one time I talked to him a long time ago, and I said, "Hey," and it was when I was trying to enter a driver's meeting, and I see that they let my other counterparts enter, and I was not allowed to enter, and I just was like, "Why am I not allowed to enter? Why
so
am I not
you
allowed?"
that did happen to you.
Yeah, that happened to me, and I just went at that moment and I talked to Mike, and I have always been allowed to go to the driver's meeting after that. But again, the sport has changed.
Was that
Has
in
changed a lot.
1995 or was that earlier?
I cannot remember. No, I started in October 1994.
94. Okay.
Yeah, so I don't remember if that was 95, 96, or early 2000. I cannot remember right
Hmm.
now. It's just I remember that like it's just things that happen, but it's different now, and that's what I want to transmit out there. It's different, but it has taken a lot of people to make it a different, right?
Hmm.
And not only women, but also the leadership. I believe that you have to be very intentional to provide opportunities to others in the industry, and that's what NASCAR has been doing. But it's not only NASCAR; all the teams have to be doing the same. You have to be very intentional to provide opportunities, and I pretty believe that the teams and everybody grows if you have a diverse group of employees.
Well, I think, and people are intimidated by this, but anytime I take on a new role, you and I were just talking about, we have all these different jobs. Every day we have a different job. Good, we'll talk about that later as well. But when I take a marketing job, they'll say, we want you to be the vice president of our marketing. I'm like, no, no, hire people, surround yourself with people that are smarter than you. I'm a good connector. I am a good organizer.
Mhm.
I know how to get people to work together, but I'm not intimidated by learning from others and making sure if I know that I have a friend that is really good at digital marketing, I'm going to call that person and let them present to the I'm not going to pretend like it's my idea.
Mhm.
And I look at that kind of as a diversifying your marketing. You don't have just one person. You need different ideas. You need different people to give ideas. And I would think in engineering it would be similar to that as well because especially, oh my gosh, when you came in as an engineer, the drivers were like, no engineers.
Yeah, no engineers.
We,
That's true.
we know
I
how to
remember
build.
that.
And I remember even Mike coming and going, oh, these engineers tried to tell me to do this to get downforce. I'm like, well, no blank. Of course I know that. I'm like, yeah, but there could be a different approach, Mike. So take me back to a little bit of that. I mean, having the confidence to walk in that garage and you're introduced. Do you remember who the first driver or team that you worked with?
Oh wow, we were wow, we were on a test in Talladega, and it was introducing a new engine and a car, and it was for Chevrolet. But I remember Delahan. I remember Terry Labonte. Dave Marcos was there. I remember also Kyle Petty. Kyle Petty was very nice to me.
I was gonna say I could see Kyle
Yeah.
Petty to being like, "Hey, cool."
Yeah, no, Kyle Petty was nice to me, but I remember, and I bet they don't remember these things, but I remember we had like a buffet style lunch, and Kyle was in front of me, and he offered me. Um, I don't understand the circumstances, but I remember, hey, do you want some? I don't know. It was like taters. He said taters or something like that, or made, or also, And I just was like, I did not understand what he said, and everything that I said, no, no, thank you, no, thank you, no, thank you. I kept saying that. I kept saying that. And after that, I got the potatoes, and he looked at me. And he said, "That was rude." Uh, And I never said to him that was like, sorry, I did not understand what you were saying.
I didn't know what you were offering me.
Yes, so I just kept going. Um, the language has been a little bit difficult trying to understand dialects, trying to understand different accents. My accent, I still have my accent. It's very obvious. But he was wonderful. He was always wonderful. But I remember that first time he looked at me. He's trying to be nice to me, and I like, no way, you know. Um, but he has been fantastic. But I remember, meeting Dale for the first time, and
Did he intimidate you?
Oh, absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely,
Me too.
absolutely. No,
I
no,
was-
absolutely. And he told me, I don't give you more than a year here, but again, you needed to know Dale,
Yes.
and I did that later. And many knew Dale. They don't understand. He was pushing me.
Mhm.
He was pushing me to get better. And but that took me time trying to understand. I remember going in '95 to a test with him at Indianapolis, preparing for the Breaker 400, and I didn't put the wheel of the car correctly, and he got mad. He got really mad, and I understand why. But I just went and said it was me, and apologized. He said something, but he kept going. But after that, um, every issue that happened, the guys, oh, that was Alba, and I did not have anything to do with the other issues that were going on. But yeah, that's when you realize, what, you're becoming part of the team.
Mhm.
You are becoming part of the team. So, once again, I can tell you many stories of things that happened in the garage. But that Talladega test was really great, and it was the first time that I saw Dale Earnhardt Jr. Dale Earnhardt Jr. was there.
Really?
Was just there with his dad, and he just was, learning a little bit about the driving and so on. We were with the RCR team at that moment. It just was like, it was so cool. It was so cool to see. Yeah.
You said 30-year anniversary. I'm going on 25 years.
Yeah.
And so for me, it's so crazy to see drivers like Chase Elliott and Harrison Burton and Jeb Burton. I'm going, oh my gosh, I knew them as babies. I remember their moms carrying them going, look at my new baby. And now they're behind the wheels of race cars and on TV and celebrating victories. And it's NASCAR. It's an emotional sport, isn't it?
Mhm.
Like
Absolutely.
I felt like, even though I've had challenges and had some people say not so nice things or make me not feel so welcome in roles that I wanted to do in the sport, I always still felt like there were more people that were welcoming. Like what you said with Kyle Petty going, okay, I see someone that's different. First of all, she's a female. She's an engineer. She's new. She's probably intimidated. And I'm going to offer her some taters.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember Ricky Craven one time asked me in a test, hey, you want a sandwich? And I was like, yes. I didn't know, I was very, very timid. I still to 10 shy sometimes, but I remember that other test, and he goes and offers me a sandwich. And this is a funny story. He's nice. Some of the guys were saying, wow, he's making a sandwich for you. How do you do that? How do you make it? And when he come back, I am so starving. I bite, and I just couldn't understand the sandwich. It was peanut butter and jelly, and that's a combination I've never seen in my
What?
life.
You did
I
not
did
have
not-
that growing up.
I did not have that growing up.
Oh.
For me, a sandwich was ham and cheese. That's a sandwich in Puerto Rico, and I almost die. I'm like, oh my god,
Well,
what is
you're
this?
sticky, and you're probably going, oh my gosh, is he poisoning me? Is
Yeah,
this
this
like
is-
a SD20 in my sandwich, or what's going on?
I couldn't eat it. I couldn't eat it. But it was just because I was in shock with the combination, and I know now that that's a normal thing, but for me that was like, oh, the world is ending.
So I'm sitting here thinking of all the things that you had to overcome, not just being a female and an engineer. And folks, if you're listening right now, it probably sounds ridiculous for Alba and I to say that, but in NASCAR, engineers were not the drivers and the crew chiefs really did not like the engineers. They felt that they were maybe downplaying their how can we say this? I guess like maybe the crew chiefs felt like engineers felt they weren't smart enough to put a race car together. The drivers felt like they should just feel what they want to feel. And they did not welcome engineering assistants at all, did they?
No, and again, once again, a little bit different. I remember Bobby Hutchins was the first engineer that I met at the track. Very smart, very, very smart. He continues being very smart. But I remember my role at that moment was to install data acquisition systems and help the teams evaluate information. It was the first days of the data acquisition. There was the PI systems. That's how we were calling them, the PI systems. And at that moment, Chevrolet has several of them, and they were going to different series, installing the systems and helping the teams, the crew chief, to understand the data and the engineers and so on. So it was really, really new for many. And some drivers, they felt a little bit like, why are you putting a sensor in X place? What are you trying to do? Are you trying to see what I'm doing? Because it was the first time, and I realized that in several test sessions, that a driver can tell you one thing, right? But the sensor was telling you something different.
Exactly. That's what
Yeah. And once again, they are like, oh, that sensor is broke, or no, are you sure about that? And again, I think that happens with everything new, with everything that is new. But I remember several test sessions that were like, some drivers were not happy with some of the sensors that were in the car.
Well, and it's funny because you have the crew chief and the driver are supposed to be this like married unit. And then you have the manufacturer who is your support to make sure your race car goes faster and faster every week and keeps up with all the vast changes that take place in our sport on a weekly basis. And when an engineer comes in and says, maybe you should try to, let off the corner a little bit earlier as you're entering one, the driver's going, what? Well, I could hear Dale Earnhardt or drivers like Rusty Wallace going, I've won 50 races. Don't tell me how to win a race. You're going, I'm just trying to help you to understand how maybe you could go even faster, right? I mean, so were there any times where you had to, I guess, have a friendly argument, maybe a friendly conversation that might have gotten a little aggressive with a driver or a crew chief to try to help them understand? And then did they understand what you were trying to say?
No, no, not really. But I remember one specific test and one specific track, one specific driver, all of that will remain nameless.
Yes.
And we put a brake sensor, and the driver was saying that, these are the areas where they are braking. And there was another driver in another vehicle, with another sensor, with the same sensor, and we're testing and said, oh, no, I am driving here and doing this, trying to compare with the other driver. And the data was not saying the same. The data was not saying that. And at that specific moment, I sat down with the crew chief. I showed them that. Once again, maybe my personality, and I knew that was going to be difficult at first. I knew that I was going to be questioned a lot.
Questioned a lot. I guess that's,
yes, questioned a lot. And I dressed myself of patience. Like, no, sometimes you have to do this 2 or 3 times just to show something. And that test, I remember, let's put another sensor. If you don't believe this sensor, let's do another sensor. And the sensor is telling you the same. The crew chief was the one that explained the driver what was going on, and the driver was not happy. And the driver made me, did a, sarcastic comment to me.
Yes.
Because he knew I was the one that put the sensor. But again, I don't decide those things. The crew chief, the team wanted that, and they were evaluating. So, funny, sometimes when I see the driver, once in a while, he remembers that. So,
and the funny thing now is the data, the drivers all totally believe the data now. I mean, because how much more advanced in 30 years? I'm not mathematical, but I know that they're just with simulation, even where drivers can learn so much about their driving style, and you guys can help them. And especially when NASCAR implements new cars, because there's some drivers that I think have done really well. Mike and I have always laughed that with this new car of today in 2025, Mike goes, I wish I could have drove that car because you have to drive it. And like, my husband used to overdrive a lot, folks. Okay. He was never laying back. He basically qualified every lap. But it seems like this car of today is always on the edge, and you have to be on the wheel every single lap.
Yeah. think about it. Technology has changed a lot,
Hmm.
and this new generation of drivers, they grew up with data. They grew up with iRacing. They grew up, for them, all of this is normal. All of them is normal, and we started to notice that at one moment, Chevrolet did like a driver combine. I remember a driver combine, and there were several drivers that now are driving in Cup Series, but they were starting right in the Truck Series, other series. And I also remember we invited other drivers that were not related with NASCAR. They were with another series. And by the way, one of them still drive in an IMSA car. But I remember immediately when they get out of the car, immediately they wanted to go to the computer and check data. That was not normal, not too normal for the NASCAR drivers at
Hmm.
that moment. But again, I started to see the changes. No, some drivers, they needed to see the computer to understand how they were driving. And if you see now the sport, and when, it's only perhaps 20 minutes of practice, but when the driver comes in the middle of those 20 minutes, you see them immediately. Somebody comes with a tablet to the driver and they look at the information and they need to correct something for the next laps. And I see that constantly, not only with our drivers, but you see it on TV
Hmm.
a lot. And it's important for them to look at the computer, to look at the data, to look at the what we call the S&T team analytics, to look at the simulation, to sit down with engineers and understanding. In the past, there were perhaps no engineers, right? And suddenly there are 2, 3, 4 engineers per team. Crew chiefs are
I was
engineers.
going to say now crew chiefs. Now I don't think I can come up with a crew chief in the Cup series that was not an engineer first.
Yeah, and there, sadly, there are several that are not. Again, data has changed.
Hmm.
Everything continues changing. Also, it was not only about hiring mechanics. At one moment it was about, oh, let's hire mechanical engineers, but that's also changing. Now you want electrical engineers, you want industrial engineers, you want software engineers. The sport and the whole corporate America is changing now with machine learning, AI. That's coming to the sport. That's coming to the sport. So the idea is hire the right people to continue giving you the edge,
Hmm.
to continue getting better. When I did that acquisition, right, maybe 10 sensors, 20 sensors. And now there are way too many
Yeah,
to
I was going to say
describe.
how do you keep up with all of them now?
No, and now there's special groups that's what they do, and they evaluate and provide information to the teams. The beauty is that I have seen how the sport is changing in that area, and I have seen the sport changing in another areas also. The tracks that we are visiting now, right?
Hmm.
When we started to go to Homestead and Phoenix and California, right? Completely different. Now we are going to Mexico.
Yes, I was going to ask you
Uh,
if you're excited about that.
Oh, I am so excited. I'm going to speak Spanish the whole weekend.
I was going to ask you. You and Suarez will be like
Yes.
laughing and looking at everybody going, learn our language
I,
this weekend.
yeah, I remember when Suarez started in the sport, and he looked at me, I look at him. He was driving a Toyota at that moment, but I went to say hello and in Spanish, yeah. And he was like, "Oh, somebody speaks Spanish," and we started to talk, and it was nothing to do with the car. It just was to feel that we had somebody that could understood
Hmm.
us. And I remember that. Once in a while, I send him a message and doesn't have anything to do with what we're doing. He works for another team that is a competitor, but it's not about that. It's about feeling that you have somebody that understands you,
Yes.
that
Yes.
understand your behaviors, how you react to things, and everything. And I am excited about going to Mexico, trying something completely different, and see how it works. And we all, it's our job to support NASCAR on this venture, and perhaps many others that will come in the future.
And you even mentioned NASCAR. Has anyone from the sanctioning body came to you and said, how can we find more female engineers to come through the sport? Have they ever talked to you about that, or even Hispanic?
It hasn't been like a formal thing. It's like a formal thing. But I keep in touch with people from NASCAR and from other groups that are about, hey, we're looking a little bit of, let's say, a little bit of more diversity.
Hmm.
Do you know about places or groups, or you know about somebody interested? Even NASCAR has hired people, and I have received the call, hey, do you mind to have a lunch with this person? Just to talk,
Hmm.
just to just to talk, and I have done it. And again, we do not have to talk at all about what our teams are doing. It's just about helping another person, especially with females.
Hmm.
Especially with females, is trying to help them to understand the sport, um, to understand things, and we do it also with our interns, with our female interns too.
See, and I love that you do that because I have experienced also from females a little bit of, I don't want to talk to her anymore because now she's in the media and she's going to take my job instead of reaching out and helping someone. So now if I see a young girl in the garage who is maybe doing sales or management or wants to do broadcast or TV, I try to go up there and say, listen, not that I'm the best one out there, but if you want someone to talk to, I think it's just knowing that you have a comfort, somebody that is like you. And maybe even if you can just kind of be, I always, NASCAR one time came to me. They wanted to do this NASCAR Wives television show. And it was Delana Harvick and Kelly Earnhardt Miller, myself. And when they came to me, they go, okay, you're the oldest wife. So we want you to be like the narrator, like you're going to teach the girls. And I was like, okay, I guess I'm old now, but that's okay. I, I kind of thought that would be fun to take that role as a mentor
The mentor.
for other women. And I just wish that, I know it's competitive, obviously. The garage is a competitive space. But I think that you can still be competitive, but also still be kind and encourage other women in the sport instead of being catty.
I agree on that, and that's something. I let me tell you one thing. I love my job. I love the sport. There are hard days. There are easier days. We know that. But I got this from my family. I got this from mom and dad. The way that they always treated people. And I really believe you have to treat others the way that you want to be treated.
Hmm.
And not because somebody perhaps doesn't treat you correctly, you're not going to treat somebody else correctly. But let me tell you, it has been hard. It has been hard that some people have not tried to make your life easier. And
Correct.
it continues. It
Hmm.
continues. But with that said, I don't know. I am a softie in some things or not, but I feel that is my job to help others that are coming after us. It's not easy. Doesn't matter if the NASCAR industry, in any industry. You have been in college, right? Life is different. Suddenly you get to corporate America, whatever that is, big groups, small groups, and it's hard to adapt. It's hard to be successful in what you're doing, but to adapt to the dynamic. And when you go to places like any of our teams where there are not as many females yet, right? There's a lot of females, but they still have
It's
to
still,
continue.
you still have to look.
Exactly, has to you get better. And I feel that it's our job to help them,
I do too.
and I spend time with females that that call me and I say, hey, I don't know you, but I just want to talk. How do you deal with it?
Hmm.
And I will give you one quick example. I remember one time at NASCAR. I don't remember it was Daytona 500 or the July race. I think that was perhaps what was the July race in Daytona. NASCAR asked me to talk to a group of females that were studying engineering, and we talk about careers and so on. But at that moment, the NASCAR person that was with all of us needed to step out for other things. And the young lady said, hey, can we ask you now what we really want to ask? And I said, wow, okay. What do you want to ask? They just wanted to talk about how do you handle something?
Hmm.
How do you handle working with all those guys? How do you handle the day to day, perhaps the balance on life, Um, so those were the questions that I really felt, okay, that's what they need right now. They,
That's the intimidation,
yeah.
I think, as a female. I mean, I know when I first started, as a manager for Mike. And it was really by accident. Unfortunately, he had a manager that was embezzling money. And I caught him. I'm the one that kind of figured it out. And I went to Mike and I said, listen, I know this sounds crazy. And this is before we were even married. And I just said, if I could sell NASCAR on radio in Columbus, Ohio, why can't I sell one driver to everybody in the garage? Mm-hmm. And he's like, all right, go for it. Well, as soon as I said, you don't have to pay me 10% commission, he's like, okay, great. But so when I started, I was very intimidated to deal with Chevrolet because I thought, oh my gosh, this is the OEM. And they're probably thinking, oh, how cute, his little girlfriend. But I'm thinking they don't know what I did before, right? They don't know that I'm still paying my school loan off. They don't know that I still want to work, and they don't know anything about me. So how can I educate them about me and not show emotion? And I think that is probably one of the key things for women, because for some reason, still to this day in 2024, almost 2025, men will say, well, I don't know if you can emotionally handle the job. And I'm going, what? I just went through menopause. You go through menopause, okay? Because I can handle emotion. We can handle a lot more than I think men give us credit for. But we do have to prove it first.
Yes. Unfortunately, we have to continue doing perhaps something 2 or 3 times. Mm-hmm. And we have to continue proving. Does it bother me? Absolutely bothers me. I have just learned how to handle it and how to work through it. The only thing that I can control in life, think about it. The only thing that you can control is yourself. You cannot control others. And that's something that I keep reminding myself. I cannot control you. I can control myself and how I react.
That's really good advice.
To the situations that are happening to me. I tend to have a lot of patience, like, okay, we need to make a change. Let's see how we're going to make the change, but it's not going to happen immediately. At the same time, if you are too emotional, perhaps you don't do a decision correctly, you let your emotions go. Mm-hmm. So and again, everybody has their different techniques. I count up to 100 or 1,000 sometimes. But again, I think that, and I learned this with a boss at GM. I remember one boss that I had GM, he was fantastic, where I met with him and he and I were looking at things very differently. And he told me, he said, you know what? Let's meet in 24 hours. And he always used to say that. Let's meet tomorrow. Let's meet in 24 hours and let's come back. By the time that we came back together, he could see my point and I could see his point, and we came with a better decision.
That is amazing advice, because I cannot tell you how many times I think I've not been proud of maybe how I reacted to something. Mm-hmm. And always, if you take a little time away, my big thing is I don't like to verbally argue. I don't like to be a person that'll sit there, and I would rather listen. Mm-hmm. And I will be quiet, and it's not because I'm trying to be stubborn. It's really, I think, because I'm trying to digest it all. So I think being able to say, let's walk away and let's come back. I'm not running away. We're just going to walk away for a little bit and let's come back and then see if either one of us see things differently. And it seems like everybody, well, not everybody, but if you're going to be successful in any corporate job, you have to be able to compromise.
Oh, absolutely.
You can't always be right. Mm-hmm. And I think that's where sometimes I'll say, listen, if you are going to work in the motorsports space, I don't care if it's NASCAR, if it's rally car, Formula One, whatever, you have to have a thick skin. Mm-hmm. And you have to understand that not everyone is going to like you. And you're a type A personality like me. I want everyone to like me, right? And then I finally had to realize not everyone likes you. It's okay. But you still have to try to compromise and work with others. And so I could imagine that you've had to compromise a lot. Like you said, you've went back 2 or 3 times, even though maybe you knew you were right. You didn't maybe cram it down that driver or that crew chief or another engineer's throat.
No, and again, I think my parents had a lot to do with mm-hmm. that, with a lot of patience and how you get things resolved with kindness. I am a person, and I don't want this to be misunderstood, but I am a person that believes that you can kill somebody with kindness, and you get way more from that person than if you go and react in a bad way. If somebody coming yelling at you, and if you go in, let's say in a low way, right? That that person loses all the power because you're going to continue yelling at what? Nobody's yelling at
Exactly.
you.
You're just
Nobody's yelling at you. And I don't want that to be misunderstood. But again, it's just what works for me. It's just what works for me, and the way that I am and that I grew up. But I will tell you, some people ask me, you know, you want someday to do a job that is a little bit way easier, or in an industry. And I say, I love the company that I work for. I love the sport that I work for. I have realized I love a sport in general. I never realized that, right? When you see all of, you are a competitor at heart
Mhm.
in many ways. When you see the baseball, right, the World Series going on,
Yes.
you see so many things, and you're just like, I realize, no, I love sports. I love sports, and I am blessed. I never thought that I would even last 1 year working in a sport that now look what happened 30 years later.
Girl, you're a fixture in the sport now.
And by the way, I'm very, very proud to say it. I don't feel old. I just very proud, like, hey, I have done it. And for me, there are 30 more years because we have to continue doing things to get better and to continue supporting our sport and our companies and to make this much better. So there's a lot of work to do.
What you made a comment earlier in the show that the sanctioning body, NASCAR, needs to be more maybe proactive to invite women, Hispanics, African American, more diversity into the sport. How can they do that? I mean, I definitely see that they're trying to do it, but is it by using people like yourself, other crew chiefs, drivers, folks in the sport to go out and, I hate to say recruit, but I mean, it's almost kind of like people want to be invited.
Yeah, but Angela, I will tell you, they are doing it. They are
Yes.
doing it. I believe we all have to continue getting better,
Mhm.
but they are doing it. They are doing it. I see their diversity efforts. I see their women's group
Mhm.
that they have. They are listening more to others. They are going, like I said, to Mexico. That's a complete different venue that everybody was like, is that ever going to happen? Their diversity program, inviting more drivers. And so, but it takes everybody. We
Mm.
cannot let that. We cannot expect that NASCAR, in this case, do the whole work. It requires every team to do it. It requires every person to do it. And believe me, NASCAR has called me and asked me, "Hey, we had this group. Can you help us? To talk to them." And our sponsors do the same. And I am very happy to do so because I never had, everything that I knew about the sport, right, was what I read, but I never had that, another person that I could talk to about the sport and
Mhm.
so on. But when you go, yeah, I was just in Homestead, and to one of our sponsors, Ally, they invited me to talk to some students that only speak Spanish, young kids. And oh my goodness, that was one of the best experiences ever. And to talk to another group of students that are going in college, and it was their first experience going to a race and trying to understand. And you show them those examples, and they are like, wow, I belong in the sport. There's people like me.
It almost takes us back to when you said you wanted to be the first Hispanic female astronaut because you saw Sally Ride do it. There's your example right there.
Exactly.
If you see someone like you
Mhm.
and you have passion for that industry, then it's almost like you get that jump start, like, I can do this.
Exactly.
I can be like her. And so it's so simple. Sometimes I think we try to make things so difficult. And I remember I was so intimidated by Chevrolet. Jeff Chu,
They
I
are
think
great.
I know, and
They
Jeff
are
was
great.
great, right? But I didn't know because I thought, oh gosh, they're going to think they're not going to take me seriously because I'm a woman, right? And I was young at that. But I mean, I had always been a go-getter. So I was confident. And when Mike and I got married, we hired a manager and he was a great guy. Loved him. He didn't last over a year because he said, Angie, I'm not saying this to be mean. It's a compliment to you, but anytime I call on Chevrolet, the first thing they say is, can we talk to Angie? And I went, well, okay, that kind of made me feel good. I'm going to, and then he said, Justin Boots, like, can we talk to Angie? He goes, so they're still asking for you. So just continue managing Mike because I'm not doing a very good job when they still want to talk to you. And I said, no, it's not that. It's just they're comfortable with me. But it was validation for me. And I'm going to be honest, it felt good.
No, absolutely. Trust
Yes.
me. Trust me. It feels very good. And by the way, Jeff Chu, one of my biggest supporters.
I love him.
I love that man. But at the same time, I believe that person, right, that manager, should have spent time with you trying to learn what made you unique.
Valuable lesson.
Yeah, what made you unique? What made you, because remember, they cannot pretend the first day they were going to accomplish what you have worked so hard to do. But if I am in their shoes, I will be spending time with you trying to learn. Hey, how did you do it? Please go with me to the next meeting in the way I see your style, trying to understand what makes them tick. Let me tell you, everybody, I love to observe people and trying to figure out, okay, that's the point that will make them, thick, not tick. This is what they would like. This is what they don't like. But that takes a lot of looking at people, watching what's going on, watching their manners, watching what they like, they don't like, and just be quiet and listening.
So you just said two things that I think I finally started learning as I turned 50. One is observe more, listen more. Ask, can I come and learn from you? I have a friend that runs PGA events. And I told Mike, I'm like, I want to go to one of his PGA events to see how he runs this event. And Mike goes, you are the best event planner I've ever met in my life. Everything you do is amazing. You don't need to learn anything. I'm like, oh, but I do. That's his space. And I want to learn what they do in the PGA weekend. And maybe I can apply it towards some NASCAR sponsors that I bring in to enjoy our sport. Mm-hmm. So you always have to have that open mind. And the other thing that I'm still learning, Alba, is patience. And the one thing that I always felt, you always seemed so patient. Not showing, you might have been frustrated, but you're not showing that in the garage. You maintain being professional, but the patience, girl, I need help on how to be more patient. I thought a tire was blowing on the way here today, and I called Mike spazzing out, and he goes, take a breath and focus. You know how to get here, and he was telling me, like, hold the steering wheel, let go. Is it going to the right or to the left? And I'm thinking, I don't want to do this right now. He's like, take a deep breath. But the whole patience.
No, but sometimes I don't have patience. I will tell you that much.
Okay, well, I've never seen that in my 25 years of observing you.
Sometimes I don't have patience, but it's just about, I realize one thing and think about it. People observe us a lot, how we react, what we do.
Yeah.
What we do. So you have to be a little bit careful, right? And then telling that to myself, okay?
Yes.
No,
I agree. No, you're absolutely. I mean, obviously, there are more eyes on us because we're different.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. But trust me, some days, I was not being patient with the grass that was not cut at home, Last night I saw was cut. That was nice.
So you're human, is what you're saying? That you're actually human? Because I'm thinking you're not. I'm thinking you're perfect.
No. Far, very far from that. No, but it's just patience. It's just how to handle others, how to talk to others, how to it's not always your way. It's not always your way. You have to listen. You have to compromise. You have to, one thing I love. What I love to work with a group that is so diverse is that everybody brings a different idea. Yes. Everybody comes with a different view, and that's how companies grow. If everybody was from the same place, it would be boring. And I learned this a lot at General Motors. I remember in some way I got blessed to work on one of the recruiting teams. And I remember one of those first meetings, that was a long time ago. And they were saying about, oh, no, we're recruiting X, Y, and Z university. And I am like, why? Mm-hmm. Why you don't go to this one or that one or that one or that one? And that was when I was trying to convince them to go to the University of Puerto Rico to recruit. And they just were fascinated with 2 or 3 universities. And it's different at GM. Now, from anywhere, they hire. from anywhere, and diversity of thought, right? That's what has helped them to grow a lot. But I remember one VP of engineering coming to Puerto Rico and said, you know what I love about the University of Puerto Rico is that because you guys don't have that many resources like many universities in the States, you guys invent. You are inventive. You will come with different ways of how to look at things. You think out of the box. And it's due that we grew up without too many resources.
Mhm.
And think about it. If think about people from all over the world, they have different views of how to see things. And I wish that many people understood that.
Is that something that you're able to do in your new position now over at Hendrick Motorsports?
Recruit?
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely. And trust me, I sometimes I go and say, hey, let's go to this something completely different. um, we just went to Knoxville, to the dirt track, and we said, hey, it's the best event, and there's a lot of people there that are think differently. Let's talk to them. Yeah, and the company is very open to that. Let's look at people from not only this country, other countries. So motorsports transcend countries, transcend everything.
Yes.
You're just looking for the smarter people that can help you continue being the best of the best.
The smarter people with patience that don't let their emotions get to them, that are willing to listen, willing to adapt, right? I mean, and if you think about all the people that have been so successful, it's usually those characteristics. I have to tell you something kind of fun. So I was talking to my husband, Mike, last night, and I said, oh, my first interview is going to be Alba. And he goes, oh, tell Alba I said hi. And I said, I will. And he said, and I go, I want to ask you something. When I say her name, what do you think? And we were at a dinner party. So he's at this dinner party and he said, kind, smart, to the point, and got things done. And I thought, I think that's a great compliment.
Wow.
And I was like,
special.
I know. I was like, I'm kind of proud of you, babe, that you just said all those things about Up. And he goes, well, they're true. I mean, because, Mike, you don't say nothing that he's, sometimes I say, Mike, just because you think it don't mean you need to say it, babe. Keep that in your mind. But so I like to wrap up Motorvate. I say I like to wrap up. It's the first time I'm doing it. I'm going to wrap up this first episode, and I hope to continue to do this in all of the episodes with a fun little game. And I'm going to call it the rear view mirror. So if you look in the rear view mirror, what is something that maybe you admit, well, maybe I didn't handle this good, or I didn't do this very well, and I would have changed it now looking back. And it obviously it can be some good advice for someone listening today.
Oh boy, that's a tough one.
I know. See, I hit you up with a stumper.
No. I would say different. At first, I was not giving myself too many opportunities. I remember when GM offered me the job, I pretty much in my mind was I was not going to take it.
Really?
I was not going to take it, but I was not going to take it because I started to think about all the not too positive things instead of the positive things. And fear was one of them. But there is this amazing professor that is a mentor that we continue talking, by the way, that told me, and I said, what is the worst that can happen? That you fail? You try it. You try it. And again, you can open a door for others. But he told me I was being a little bit dumb because I was not giving me the opportunity. So interesting enough, I keep telling young people, you have, dreams change. Allow yourself that your dreams change, right? I wanted to be an astronaut, and suddenly I'm doing something else, and everybody thinks about their life. Oh, I have it set up how it's going to be. But I was preaching something that I was not following. And that professor told me, what is wrong with you? You are giving an opportunity that too many others want. And you are just going to say no because you're just thinking about all the bad stuff. And I just went and took it, and the rest is history.
30 years later.
Yeah, the rest is history. But it's just fear. It's just the fear of the unknown.
Mm-hmm.
And it takes over your mind. It takes over your body. And that is something, and that has happened. It happened to me, like, I don't know, some weeks ago about something completely different. And I'm like, no, 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 don't think like that. Don't think like that. So,
I was going to say it still happens.
oh,
Even
absolutely.
just starting this podcast, I thought, well, I host on Sirius XM NASCAR radio, but a podcast all on your own is totally different, Angie. and I had a little bit of fear, and I thought, no, I'm going to overcome it because I know I'm going to learn something from it, which just my first episode today with you, I have, and also just maybe having some validation on some thoughts and feelings that I felt as well about how to be maybe a better manager. So I thank you for that. But I'm going to challenge you with one more thing,
Absolutely.
because now we don't just look in the past. We got to look out the front windshield. You're on the lead lap. What's next? What's next for
Oh,
Alba?
no, many things. I want to continue growing in the company. I want to continue growing in the sport. I am very clear about that. I think that my managers are very clear about that. But it's not only the grow. Grow is not only titles. Grow is more than that. And trying to figure out exactly what that means. But I will tell you one thing that is for sure. To help the next generation to continue growing the sport and our company. You know, our company just been celebrating 40 years this year, by the way. Imagine that. That's amazing.
And to be on top for 40 years.
And to be on top and to be that dynasty, that's fantastic. But I have sat down with the president of the company and tell him, what is in the next 40? I know that we are celebrating this and it's fantastic, and what Mr. H has done for the company, for the sport, for each one of us, amazing. But what is next? What is next? Where do we want to be in 10 years when we celebrate 50? Where do we want the next generation that is going to celebrate the 40? That is what we need to be working on to keep that tradition, that dynasty, and to bring the right people to do this and the right technologies, right?
Yes.
We always need to be looking. And trust me, like I said, the president of the company has heard that from me. And even Jeff Gordon has heard that from me.
I was going to say, have you told Mr. Gordon that
yes.
lately? I
even,
love it.
Even, it's about what is next, and we need to concentrate on that.
So I think I'm going to brag on myself a little bit. Actually, I got to brag on my friend Susan, who's been helping me kind of come up with this podcast. Driven to dominate. Alba Colón. Perfect. You dominate, girl. You really have. And I mean, I'm not just saying that because you're my first guest, but I've always wanted to sit down and have a conversation. So now that we've gotten this first one out of the way, I am not going to have fear. Next time I see you at the track, I'm going to say, I want to have a glass of wine. I want to have a margarita together. I want to have dinner together, because I think you can continue to encourage me to be better, because you are driven to dominate, not just in engineering or in racing, but I think as a human being. And thank you so much for joining me today.
And the same for you. The same for you. We need to help each other.
Yes.
We need to help each other to keep growing. And thank you for you doing this with this podcast and to showcase the amazing women that are in NASCAR. And thank you. This is a privilege to be in the first episode.
I love it.
Let's do this again for episode 50 or 100, okay?
Yes, deal. Yes, because you're going to tell me all the new things that you've done over at Hendrick Motorsports and how you've continued to grow.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Motorvate is a podcast dedicated to sharing uplifting and inspiring stories from the motorsports, power sports, and auto industrial world. Thank you so much for listening. Don't forget to subscribe to however you listen to your podcast. Leave us some comments, positive comments as well. Tell us things that we can do better, people to interview, and we'll see you next time on Motorvate.